think one of the reasons why people get divorces, just from my experiences in coaching, is because they hang on to resentment.
Mm-hmm.
They hang on to resentment, number one. And two, they married the person because they thought marriage was going to be the cure for all of their problems. Which made it
I've
worse.
seen that a lot.
I've seen that a lot, honey. Hi, welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to talk about how to know if it is time for divorce. And also, guys that are listening and tuning in through podcasts, welcome back to the podcast. Happy to have you. So it's a pretty serious topic, divorce.
Yeah, it is. It is. How do you know it's time to divorce me, my love?
I don't know because I don't want to divorce you. I'm just kidding. So obviously, if you are new to this podcast or this channel, Alex and I were married. We have numerous amounts of years of coaching experience with couples, relationships, and dating. And so this is where we're bringing in our perspective as well. We've never been divorced before, just to clarify. And hopefully we'll never be divorced. Hopefully. Gosh, that's a scary word for me to say out loud. And I'll say that out loud because it's not something we really say out loud. So with that said, I think this video is more based off of our experiences from coaching. Me, 8 years, you 18.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I say 18 like this, because I get it wrong all the time sometimes.
Yeah, because I said it in the previous video that was 30 minutes ago. That's why you got it right this time.
So what I've seen in midst of divorce,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is how to know it's time for a divorce. I really want to clarify. Like, I don't think that we ever really know it's time until one person makes it time. I've seen incidents where there's mutual divorces, but they're very minimal. They're very slim. But I do think divorce can be a shock to a lot of people, but they can see it coming. They see the warning signs, they see it coming. And I think that with that said, I think one of the reasons why people get divorces, just from my experiences in coaching, is because they hang on to resentment. They hang on to resentment, number one. And two, they married the person because they thought marriage was going to be the cure for all of their problems. Which made it
I've
worse.
seen that a lot.
I've seen that a lot, honey.
Okay.
It's because I work with men. You work with men too, but you work with a lot of women.
Yeah.
And men, I believe what I've seen is men just don't know how to marry and choose a good woman because they're not taught it. So they think because she's pretty and because this is what she wants marriage and she wants this ring and we have great intimacy, then I should marry her, you know? But he then just makes his world worse.
Mm-hmm.
Why, you don't think that that's common?
I'm not, I don't know. I have never seen it that much in my practice, but that makes sense. Maybe men needs to choose wisely there. I used to choose girlfriends on how I feel, and that was leading to breakups and codependency and issues in my personal life until I met you. So that's like when we need to work on ourselves. But when I see like how do we know it's time to divorce, I would change the topic to how can we save our relationship. That's my deformation as a professional love coach that helps you guys even when you feel it's over. But the one thing I want to say is usually we, as you mentioned, we grow resentment in ourselves. We grow resentment, which leads to the divorce. And I've seen so many people that told me, I want to get divorced. I'm not happy with the relationship. And when I asked them, did you tell your wife? Did you tell your husband? Did you tell that person that you're not happy? They always say, not really. And so I feel like it's time to divorce if you really communicate.
Yeah.
Like, and you gave your heart, and you gave your best, and you try to make it work, and nothing has changed. Then if nothing has changed after all the efforts, yeah, maybe it's time to divorce. But before that, there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot that we can implement in order to make the relationship works. So I've seen so many people just wanting to divorce, being mad at their partner without saying it. That drives me crazy.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm not a really big believer of divorce in the first place, even though in the U.S. we have the biggest divorce rate. It's all about.
In France too, I don't know.
Really?
In
But
France.
in France, you have this law where you don't need to be married. What is it called? Common law or something?
No, there is like kind of like a wedding. It's called Pax pax, it means like wedding, but it's not really as legal as a wedding. But no, there is a lot of divorces in France too. So I think it's more common now in the society that we are in. We think that the grass is greener. We always want to feel excited. We don't allow the routine to be part of any situation. And I feel like all of those expectations are creating the deep inside resentment. Instead of seeing the relationship as a partnership, the marriage as a partnership, we talk about the vision in the first episode, which I feel is so important. But it's time, like, I want people to understand that if you get divorced without fighting for your marriage, you will have a lot of regrets. I've seen so many people coming to me saying like, I should have done this, I should have said that. And they live with their regrets. So every morning they wake up being sad. That's not what I want for you guys.
Yeah, I definitely think you have to try. And a lot of people don't try for the divorce. Yeah, and it has a lot to do. I think divorce just has a lot to do with resentment and not being, and sometimes not being treated right. But that comes down to why you chose a person in the first place. What I was saying, the first and second thing, you know. I also noticed, because you remind me, I've close to a lot of clients or a lot of men that also say like the reason sometimes they don't want to get married or they fear long-term relationships is because something that you know is always going to be the same. You know what I mean? It's just neutral, basically.
It's I don't know, in French we call fatality. If I'm trying to
What's that in English?
Fatality. I just put it in English. It
no,
was
that
fatality. It's kind of like fatalist, or you know, you do something, and maybe fatalist will be the English word. Let me look at Google Translate. See, that's how we dated, guys. You have this in real life now.
Yeah, it's true. I don't
she
think
forgets
that's it,
something,
babe.
and then she doesn't understand me, which is normal.
Oh, anyways, why you look at it like they're scared of this feeling. Like, because they're so used to the high, you know, and they want the excitement all the time. And I think that is where, like, when we expect a relationship like this, it can
It's called
fall apart.
fatality.
Maybe my English
Fatality
is not that good.
it's basically the idea that, it will be like this. You know, every day will be the same. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, you lose like the passion, the momentum. You lose the
But
the
the
motivation.
thing is, like, you don't ever have to lose the passion and every day being the same. I don't think.
But I think there is a moment where you take things for granted as well. So you lose something. If every day are the same,
Yeah.
I mean, it depends of everyone. But for me, in my life, I tend to try to change things. We went to the studio today, and then tomorrow there is something else. And then after tomorrow, we do something else. So I like to have a life where I feel alive, where I feel
We do that.
excited about. So go ahead. Sorry, we're talking about the routine and men that you have coached.
Yeah, just men I coach, they get scared of like having this like stability, you know, in their relationship where it's like can become boring. But I just don't believe in that. Like, I just believe like stability is very nice because you know what you're waking up to every day, and as long as it's safe, it's good. And I think we take it for granted. And like you said, we do different things like a couples thing on the weekend, stuff like this, and just investing and just doing different things every once in a while in your marriage. I see a lot of couples that don't invest in their marriage anymore, and so they do want a divorce because they think the grass is greener on the other side. And leading back to my controversial statement that I make sometimes that people don't like is I do believe as a man you should keep up with yourself, and I do believe as a woman that you should keep up with yourself in marriages unless you have a health issue, suffer from mental illness where it's like getting in the way and you need to focus on that first. Obviously there's other things, but I do think like we look at, oh, I'm married so I can kind of let myself go. Like, no, you're married, so now the work starts because you're also going to age, things are going to fall apart. And so you also want to make sure that you are, you know, keeping up with yourself because that makes you happy. So if you're happy, your partner will be happy too. And I think this is another reason why people get divorced so much so often is because they lose sight of that.
Interesting. So I want to know, because the topic is how do you know if it's time to divorce? Have you already advised someone that maybe they should divorce?
But they need to. I never would say that they need to divorce, but they need to leave or separate would be the thing.
Okay.
Because I naturally don't believe in divorce, and I'll tell you why. Like, I feel like for me, when I'm married, it's a spiritual thing. It's a connection with God. You know what I mean? And so I do believe that this is just my religious perspective. I think a lot of people lost sight of what marriage truly is pertaining to the Bible, pertaining to what God wants for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um, for me, the only way I would leave our marriage is if you basically did something really bad to me or just didn't live by our values anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Everything else, it's not like I have to, but I must. It shows you, you know? So I think one, we've lost the sense of purpose for marriage, and we think a marriage is just a cure-all. And typically, some people get married when they're in the midst of a toxic relationship, right? So I have told men like they need to separate and find themselves first, work on themselves first.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that are in really volatile, toxic relationships, sometimes emotionally abusive, physically abusive, financially abusive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've had horrible incidences with men that are such good men and want to make a marriage work, and their wife is just not a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just tell.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't never say divorce because it go against my religious beliefs. But I also believe that separation is important and finding yourself so then you can make that decision on your own, because I feel like people who get there in a marriage that are in volatile or toxic relationships means that they don't have a higher power. So they need to find the higher power within themselves or anywhere else before they make that decision so they have the clarity.
I like what you say because I have seen and I want everyone to know that this is not men against women or women against men, because I coach mostly women, and I've seen that they're in situation where there is men that could be verbally abusive, psychologically abusive, or physically abusive. In this dynamic, we can't recommend you to stay with someone when you are experiencing all of those trauma. It's difficult for a love coach, a relationship expert to tell you, oh yeah, no problem, you should continue to be with someone that will be physically abusive if we take the extreme. In the meantime, I want you to know that before you get divorced, I will really highly suggest that you go see a couple therapist or a relationship expert, or you just do a retreat or buy a program together and work on it online. You would be surprised to know how many couples relationship we have saved. It is insane, just because when you are in a situation, you don't have the ability to just look at the details and control your emotions, and that's why you need someone's help. It could be a product, it could be a coaching, it could be a therapy, whatever, but just doing the work on yourself and with your partner can really help you create a better relationship and save your marriage instead of going to divorce. So do this before to go to divorce, to have zero regrets, to tell yourself, I have worked on everything. Sometimes we grow apart, sometimes it can happen that we want a divorce, sometimes things happen in life. But before you do this, please make sure that you try everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it has a lot of perspective of like who you're showing up in the marriage as, and how they are. And sometimes that needs to change. Like sometimes part of you needs to change. And that's the hardest part, is when you're the one that needs to change. But how about when you work with someone that has a wife or a girlfriend or boyfriend or husband that's just checked out and they don't want to work on it. They don't want to do the product. They don't want to do any of this.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting because it happens a lot, you know, and mostly men, I don't know, but because I coach women, but mostly men, we tend to have a lot of ego. We don't want to communicate with a professional. We don't want to do this. It should be working out, or it's not meant to be together, or things like this. That's what I hear. That's when I can be a little bit controversial as well, which means I believe in the distance. I believe someone that doesn't want to do the work, it's because they take you for granted most of the time. So you need to use the distance. You need to refocus on yourself. You need to focus on your energy, your life, because when your partner will see you looking amazing, having your purpose, going out, meeting people, doing new activities, they will step up and they will want to do the work. But if you beg them or ask them when they already told you no, you're basically giving them control, which I love to talk about balance of power and how to regain control. So I will use the distance and refocus on themselves. I would tell this to my clients, my coachee.
Mm-hmm. How about if a client actually did that and then their husband or wife actually like goes out or finds another woman, cheats, and was like, well, you were the one that left me?
So it
Manipulation, obviously.
never happened to me. Yeah, it never happened to me. you know, because most of the time, the first reaction from the manipulation is anger. Oh, you're doing this now, you should have done it before. And so all of this anger is to test my client. But if they don't react and they just go strong in their values and say, yes, look, I have learned, this is what I want. That's I ask you to work on a marriage, you say no. So now you're seeing my changes and you need to step up. When you set boundaries, you can have great results. So all of the other questions, most of the time it's kind of our imaginations. Like, what if they find someone else because I'm distant? No, that's not going to happen. When they see you distant and happy and confident and beautiful, they want to come to you. And sometimes take your value down, but you know how to navigate. That's why I love the idea that coaching you is the solution.
Okay. Awesome. I mean, I think that's pretty much it for the divorce part.
Yeah, let's do another video very soon.
Yeah, this is such a sad topic, but it's also something that a lot of people want to hear our opinions on. So
yeah, because that's a good, like, how do you know if it's time to divorce? It's basically when you have tried everything, when you're clear with yourself. But most of the time, I can tell you that there is always something we can do, and that can change the dynamic. If you're in, you don't see all the solutions because you're in the dynamic. You're blindsided a little bit.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, comment below. Share this with a fellow person that might need this and need some help because they're going through something in their marriage or their relationship. And like and share this episode as well. Much love to you guys and see you in the next one.
See you guys. Take care.